by the Bitachon family, for Lilu Nishmat Menashe ben Yaakov, the Kanyan family, Lilu Nishmat Sadaf Simcha ben Farivatila Eden, Avraham ben Esther, Farza Diana bat Victoria, and for Refuah Shlema for Shira bat Hemda, for Refuah Shlema. We're on Chaf Gimel Amud Aleph, right? Yes. 23a, where we Rabbi Israeli said I should go back a little bit to Rabbi Pedat, just as a quick review. It's right around the middle. Rabbi Pedat is answering the question, right? He was bothered by, are we allowed to buy an animal from a goy, or are we not allowed to buy an animal from a goy? It seems to be a stira. One Mishnah says yes, Braita says no. Which one is it? What's the answer? So Rabbi Pedat says, no problem. It's not a machloket. I mean, it's not a stira. It's not a contradiction. There's a machloket. Some people say yes. Some people say no. Rabbi Eliezer says you cannot, and the Chachamim say you may buy. Sorry, did I get that flipped around? Right? Rabbi Eliezer says you cannot, and the Chachamim say you could. You could buy an animal from a goy. That is the answer to the question according to Rabbi Pedat. Right? Now, how does he bring a proof? He brings a proof that there's a machloket by para aduma, by the red calf, that we know that a red calf has to be. Rabbi Eliezer says that you cannot buy it from a goy, and the Chachamim say you could buy it from a goy. So you see, take that machloket, apply it to every other machloket about buying an animal from a goy. And it comes out that there's a machloket between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim about whether or not you can buy an animal for a goy, from a goy to use as a korban, which makes sense. Now the Gemara says maybe that's not true, right? Maybe that's not true. The Gemara says maybe Rabbi Eliezer only says over there that you're not allowed to because. Right, because there's this idea that a person would not hold himself back, or a person would hold himself back because he doesn't want to use. I'm sorry, I'm saying this backwards. In a second, how do we say this? Right, that it was backwards. That you have to be more machmir because of an eglah. So meaning, really, when it comes to paraduma, right, the red calf. Really, or really any animal, right, any korban, you should be allowed to buy it from a goy. But Rabbi Eliezer said, no, you have to be extra machmir because it's a red calf. You have to be extra machmir. So says the Gemara, no, because, right, says the Gemara, no, because the goy would hold himself back. The goy would not be with the red calf if he knows that he's going to lose out on such a small amount of. I'm sorry. Let me do this one more time. Rabbi Eliezer really is not talking about whether or not the goy is going to physically interact sexually with the calf. Rather, he's going to put some kind of yoke on the calf, and that's going to be the issue. So it has nothing to do with whether or not he's going to interact sexually, which is what we've been thinking about. Right? We've been worried that the guy is going to interact with it. No, that's not the problem. The problem is he's going to put a yoke on it, and if you put a yoke on a calf, it's no good. So it says the Gemara, no, because why would a goy, think about it, a red calf, millions of dollars. Why would a goy put a yoke on a calf, on a red calf, knowing that if he puts the yoke on the red calf, he loses out on millions of dollars? If he doesn't put the yoke on the calf, fine, so he has to carry something. He has to physically carry whatever item it is that he wanted to put the yoke on for. So it would make no sense. That's a bad business decision. Why would you lose out on millions of dollars in order to save yourself from carrying whatever it is you need to? So that's the way the Gemara says no. It must be that the problem is he's going to interact with it, right? So says the Gemara, maybe. So let's go from there. Let's go from that answer. Vidilma. Does everybody see Vidilma? It's maybe
23a-23.
Right, 23, and it's about 8 or 10 lines from the bottom. Vidilma. The first one in line is Hatam. So the Gemara says, Vidilma dechule alma. Maybe everybody agrees, lo chayshinan lirvi'ah, that we're not worried that the goy is going to interact with the cow or the animal in this way. This is the reason of Rabbi Eliezer. Tani Shila, like Shila says, the Tani Shila. Shila said, "My time Rabbi Eliezer." What's the reason of Rabbi Eliezer? Daber el bnei Yisrael. Speak to the Jews. Veikhu elecha bnei Yisrael. Right, and the Jews will take for you. So, sorry, veikhu elecha. That's the pasuk. Speak to the Jews, and they will take for you. So the Gemara interjects right now. Right, it says the pasuk says about a red calf. Speak to the Jews, and they will take for you. So bnei Yisrael yikhu ve'en ha'ovdei kochavim yikhu. Right, the implication is, speak to the Jews and they will buy for you. You have to buy it from Jews. You can't buy it from goyim. So there's no such concern that you're going to buy it from a goy and it turns out he was with the animal in some sort of way. That's not the concern. The concern is the pasuk specifically said you must buy a calf from a Jew, and that's it. The red calf specifically. That's not going to apply to every single korban. That's specifically by the red calf. So you have no proof that Rabbi Eliezer has a concern the goy is going to be with the cow in some sort of way, which is what we're really worried about. No, instead the problem is the pasuk says you can't buy it from a goy. That's as simple. So you can't bring a proof from a red calf to a regular korban, right? So the Gemara says lo sakadaitach. So it's actually very strong. It seems it's very strong because the Gemara has somebody who says, Rabbi Shila, who says that this is the reason for Rabbi Eliezer. It's not for what we thought it was, which is a problem. Says the Gemara, lo sakadaitach. Don't think this way. Diktani seifa. It says in the seifa in the end of the Braita, v'chen haya Rabbi Eliezer posel bechol hakorbanot kulan. So too Rabbi Eliezer would be posel. He would make it pasul, right? He would make it not fit for a korban, every korban. So ve'isa kadaitach kedatani shila. So if you would have thought it was like Shila said, bishlama para ketiv ba kicha, ela kuluhu korbanot kicha ketiv bihu. So that's the Gemara disproving this point, which is to say, sure, Shila makes he's good. Shila makes sense, but the problem is the Braita specifically says that every single possible korban has this problem, according to Rabbi Eliezer. According to Rabbi Eliezer, you cannot buy a korban, no matter what type of korban it is, from a goy. So if you can't buy any korban from a goy, that means that clearly he's not concerned that the pasuk says you can't buy it because it says the word kicha b'nei Israel. Clearly there has to be a different concern because the pasuk doesn't say v'ikhu elecha b'nei Israel by every single korban, only by paraduma. So if Rabbi Eliezer holds, one more time, if Rabbi Eliezer holds that every korban is a problem, then it must be that he holds that there's a concern that the goy will be with it. And if that's a concern, then we're good. Rabbi Eliezer has that concern. Chachamim do not have that concern, and therefore we're perfect, right? Therefore we are perfect. So says the Gemara, Vidilma. Says the Gemara, fine. So now you get that Rabbi Eliezer. So we're on the last line, Vidilma, on Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. Vidilma, maybe ad kan lo pligi Rabbanan alei Rabbi Eliezer. Maybe the Chachamim only argued on Rabbi Eliezer, ela bepara, by a para, right, a red calf, the dame yekarin, that it's, what, sorry? Oh yeah, right, the dame yekarin, that its money is very expensive, right? It's a big loss. Aval bishar korbanot module, right? Now this question, it should have been at the back of everybody's mind when we mentioned the reverse of this svara last time, right? We had the reverse of this thought process a minute ago. Now you take it and you flip it around. I understand you proved to me that Rabbi Eliezer holds you can never buy a calf. A korban. You can never buy a korban. You just proved that to me. I'm fully in with you. Rabbi Eliezer holds you cannot buy a korban from a goy, no matter what type of korban. You're going to tell me a red calf. You're going to tell me, a chatat. Whatever you're going to tell me, right? Shlamim, whatever it is. Can't buy it from a goy. So it must be Rabbi Eliezer holds that the goy is suspected to have been with it. But you're going to tell me that there's a proof that the Chachamim argue with him on every single animal? There's no proof that the Chachamim argue with him on every animal. There's only a proof that the Chachamim argue with him on a red calf specifically. Maybe they agree with every other animal. Now, why would they make a distinction between a red calf and every other animal? Because think about it. Until now, the goy is holding himself back. He knows that if he messes up with the red calf, he's losing $10 million. So of course he's not gonna of course he's not going to miss out on that for whatever it is. But for any other random korban, how much does a goat cost? How much does a cow cost? Right? So I don't know. Maybe it's not that much. He's not standing to lose so much money, so maybe he will be with the animal. So you have no proof that there's the Chachamim arguing on Rabbi Eliezer, which was our whole basis of the answer. Our whole basis of the answer is the Chachamim argue on Rabbi Eliezer. So therefore you have one Mishnah, one Braita, one's a Rabbi Eliezer, one's a Chachamim. Now you don't have that. Maybe they're both hold that you're not allowed to. So says the Gemara, Aval bishar korbanot module ve'ela hadetanya. So now the Gemara answers. Oh yeah, well if you're gonna say that, by the way we're on Chav Gimel Bet. Ve'ela hadetanya. Rather, if you're gonna say that, lokhin mehen behema the korban money. So then the Gemara says, fine, maybe you have a good point. Maybe you could say that the Chachamim agree with Rabbi Eliezer, and then you only have one Shita in the Mishnah. So the Gemara, if you do that, you have a question. So I'm answering your question. So don't make things harder than they have to be. A very interesting answer in the Gemara. It's very hard to understand what the Gemara's point over here is. We find this in another Gemara, I believe, if I remember correctly. There's a Gemara in Sukkah that does something similar. That says, if you don't agree with me, Rabbi Yehuda holds like nobody. And it's hard to figure out why that's a good answer. That's the problem. That's what we've been bothered by until now. So if your answer, if the proof that your answer is a good answer is, well, the question's a good question, okay, fine, the question is a good question. I'm aware of the question being a good question. That's why I've been asking it. Why is all of a sudden the Gemara says, oh, well, if you just disproved me, then you have a question. Good, yeah, I'm trying to figure out. Right? It becomes especially difficult here because we have other ways of answering the question. This is Rabbi Pidat is not our first answer; it's our third answer. So why is the Gemara saying, "Well, you have to say like Rabbi Pidat"? Because if you don't say like Rabbi Pidat, you're in trouble. You have a question, and you're not. You have two other answers. So you could say those other two answers, get out of the problem that way, and then you get into, and then don't say like Rabbi Pidat. It's very hard to understand why the Gemara feels satisfied by saying, well, yeah, of course you have a good question. Of course you could disprove me, but if you do that, you have a question. Again, agreed. Yes, that's what we've been bothered by. So let's read that inside one more time. Yeah. So the Gemara ve'ela, second line, right in the middle. Ve'ela hadetanya. Rather, this is what it says. Lokhin mehen behema lekorban. This Braita that says you can buy a korban. If you're going to tell me everyone agrees to Rabbi Eliezer that you can never buy a korban off people, and now you have a Braita that says you could buy a korban off people, mani, who says that? Lo Rabbi Eliezer. This can't be Rabbi Eliezer. Velo Rabbanan. It can't be the Chachamim. So if you're going to prove to me that the Chachamim and Rabbi Eliezer agree that you can never buy a korban off everybody, then who says that you could? There's a Mishnah that says, or there's a Braita that says you could, and who would that Braita be? Again, it's interesting because that's the problem. That's what we've been bothered by. Ve'od. So now the Gemara says a second answer, which is interesting. Why the Gemara didn't just say this answer in the first place? Yeah. Ve'od Tanya behedya. We have a Braita that says very clearly, Mai otivulei chavrohi leRabbi Eliezer. What did Rabbi Eliezer's friends tell him? Kol tzon kedar yakavetzulach ya'alu leratzon al mizbechi. The pasuk doesn't say ya'alu leratzon al mizbechi. It says ya'alu al mizbechi leratzon, I believe. Yalu al ratzon. What does the Bach say? Yalu al ratzon. So, but the pasuk says all of the sheep of Kedar is the desert of I believe Saudi Arabia, right? The Saudi Arabian desert, and it says all of the sheep of Kedar, all the sheep of the Arabs, will be brought together for you. Yalu al ratzon, right? Mizbechi. They will be brought. They will be brought in my mizbeach for leratzon means like it will be wanted by the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So Hashem will want the korbanot to be brought from the Arabs. Clearly, the pasuk tells you, this is their disproof to Rabbi Eliezer. Whoa, time out. This is a problem. The pasuk says all of the sheep from the Arabs will be brought together in one place and be brought on the korban on the mizbeach as a korban. Hey, Rabbi Eliezer holds. No can do, right? You can't buy it from an Arab. All of a sudden, the Gemara is saying, "Oh no, you could buy it from an Arab." So therefore, what? Therefore, if they're telling Rabbi Eliezer, no, clearly you're allowed to buy it from an Arab, that means that they disagree with him, because otherwise they wouldn't have brought a proof against Rabbi Eliezer if they hold like him, right? So they're not trying to disprove him if they agree with him. So it must be there are people who disagree with Rabbi Eliezer. They must be the ones who wrote the Breita that says you're allowed to buy one from a goy. So we have two answers. They seem to be very, very different. One of them seems to be a very clear proof. Okay, it's not so clear why the Gemara doesn't like this answer. Clearly, the Gemara doesn't like this answer very much. Well, the first answer is just simply, well, if you don't agree with me, then you're in trouble. Okay, it's very hard to understand why the Gemara would say that. And the second answer, the Gemara doesn't like so much either. It's not so clear what the Gemara doesn't like about it, but the Gemara says, well, if you don't agree with me, there's a Braita that says that the Chachamim agree, the Chachamim argue on Rabbi Eliezer. So it must be that the Chachamim argue on him because they have a Braita that they argue with it. Fine. So now we're gonna take a break from this question of Rabbi Eliezer versus the Chachamim, why there's a Braita and a Mishnah that seem to contradict each other. We're going to ask a different question, sort of just a more baseline, simple, get back to the basics question. Ad kan lo pligi. Until now, they did not argue. Ela bechashasha. They only argued whether or not we are concerned, right? So until now, the machloka between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim was: are we concerned that the goy is going to be with is going to have relations with the cow, right, or whatever sheep it is? Are we concerned that the goy is going to have relations with it? That's the machloket. It says yes. Says we are concerned. Chachamim say no. That's the machloket. Aval hecha devadei riva. But if he for sure was with the animal, pisalah, it's pasul. It's no good. So you cannot bring that korban on the mizbeach. So the Gemara says, why not? Shma mina, right? This is the background. Now, this is an important background. Shma mina de para kodshe mizbeach hi. You see clearly that a red heifer is kodshe mizbeach. Let's give a little bit of background behind this. So, the para duma, the red calf, red heifer, whatever we translate it as, really it's not a korban in the traditional sense that a lot of korbanot are korbanot. It's only a korban in the sense that, so like this, when you bring a korban, you make the animal kadosh, right? It becomes holy, and you set it aside to be brought as a korban in the Beit HaMikdash. Now, obviously, when we shech the cow, you shecht it, you burn it, and you take the ashes, put them in water, and you sprinkle them on people. Now, it's not really a korban in the sense that other korbanot are korban, because if it was a real korban, put it on the mizbeach, right? It's not going on the mizbeach, or even if it goes on the mizbeach to be burnt, it's not. It has a different goal. The end goal is not either to be eaten or be completely burnt to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rather, the end goal is to take the ashes and to put them in water and sprinkle them to make people ritually purified, right? To be tahor. So there's a big difference between our end goal and the end goal of every other korban. Now, where that translates directly is when you take a regular korban. Let's say a person needs to bring a korban olah, right? He makes sure that he designates the korban as designated for the mizbeach and holy to be brought to the mizbeach, so that the animal's actual body is holy. When you take a red heifer, the animal's body does not become kadosh. The goof of the animal stays not kadosh. It's not considered to be designated to be brought as a korban. Okay, and that makes a big difference in what we're about to discuss. Okay, there's a lot of halachic differences that come out of the fact that it's considered. So the way we describe that is it kodshe mizbeach? Is it kadosh to the actual mizbeach, right? Or is it kodshe bedek habayit? And bedek habayit means the upkeep of the house. It means the upkeep of the Beit HaMikdash. So if it's kodshe bedek habayit, the upkeep of the Beit HaMikdash, that means that you look at the cow as just something property owned by the Beit HaMikdash. It's not itself holy. But if you look at it as kodshe mizbeach, then it itself is holy, and it must be treated as such. Now, if it's not itself holy, it just belongs to the Beit HaMikdash, so then does it need to be is there a problem if it was if the person was with it, if it's not itself holy? No, there's not necessarily a problem with that, right? What would be the problem? Problem would be that it's a holy animal, but it's not. It's just a regular animal. It's property owned by the Beit HaMikdash. Obviously, the goy that did that is menuval and a rasha, but it's not a problem for us to use as a red heifer. But you clearly see the Gemara makes the Midrash, the Braita says that there is a problem in that scenario. There is a problem with that. So let's see what that looks like. Yeah, let's going back a little bit. Ad kan lo pligi. We're gonna do this again. Yeah, just so we gave ourselves the requisite background information. It says the Gemara, Ad kan lo pligi. We only argued right? And Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim, ela bechashasha. Whether or not are they concerned that the goy is going to be with the animal? Aval heicha devadei riv'ah. But if he was certainly with the animal, pesalah, then it's certainly no good. You cannot use it. Shma minah. You see from this, de para koche mizbeach hi, that the para is koche mizbeach, right? It is itself holy. It is itself considered to be a korban. It's not just property owned by the Bet HaMikdash, right? De'i koche bedek habayit. If it's just property owned by the Bet HaMikdash, mi mifsila bah revi'ah. You would not say that it becomes pasul, becomes no good, once the goy is with it physically, right? That would be not a problem for us. Again, you say, right? It's disgusting, and that goy has a problem, but we don't have a problem. We can still use it, no problem. So now, right? So the Gemara says, now why does the Gemara? What's the problem? The Gemara is asking a bomb question. It's a bomb question because what the Gemara is basically saying is that's not true, right? The Gemara is asking something that we know is not true, right? And pretending as if it is true. We're saying, oh, you see clearly it must be koche mizbeach. Okay, but it's not clearly koche mizbeach. We know it's not koche mizbeach. It's actually, in fact, it's completely not koche mizbeach. So if you're proving that something that we know is not true is true, that's a problem. So that's what the Gemara just did. We just proved, oh, it's the animal itself is holy. The animal itself is kadosh. That's a problem. We know that it's not. So how's the Gemara going to get out of it? So it says the Gemara, shani para. No, para is different. The chatat karye rachmana. Okay. Para is called a chatat, okay? And just to be clear what the Gemara just did, no, it's still considered simply property of the Bet HaMikdash. The goof of the animal, the actual animal's physical body, is not kadosh at all. It's just a regular animal. But you still are not allowed to use a korban para or a korban, but a paraduma. You still cannot use a paraduma if the goy was with the paraduma. Why not? What's wrong with that? If the goy was with the paraduma, what's the problem? Says the Gemara that a para is called a chatat. A chatat is koche mizbeach. Its goof is kadosh. It is a regular korban. The Gemara, the pasuk calls a chatat the pasuk calls a paraduma, a red heifer, calls it a chatat. Therefore, it needs to have the same laws regarding a chatat, or at least similar laws, which is that if the goy was with the animal, it is no good. So what the Gemara just did, it saved itself, right? Again, one more time. The Gemara asked a bomb question. Oh, you're telling me that a red paraduma is koche mizbeach, which means itself is kadosh. We know for a fact that that's not true. So how are you going to defend yourself in this scenario? If it has the laws of a koche mizbeach, you're telling me that it's koche mizbeach, but I know that it's not. Says the Gemara, no, it's not koche mizbeach. It's actually koche bedek habayit. It is what we thought it was until now, which is that its goof is not kadosh. Rather, why do we apply to it the rules of a korban that is kadosh? Because the pasuk calls it a chatat. A chatat is kadosh, the goof, so therefore we apply to it some of the rules of a chatat. That's how the Gemara answers that question. So it was a big time stuff just happened.
Is chatat actually bedek habayit?
No, it's koche mizbeach, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting. I wonder how many other korbanot you would consider to be, or how many other animals, it's not really korbanot, how many other animals you would consider to be koche bedek habayit. I can tell you this for sure, I can't think of many korbanot that would be koche bedek habayit. So I'm just thinking, there's really 4 types of korbanot, right? There's an olah, a chatat, shlamim, and a todah. Why isn't todah not considered shlamim? Okay, fine. But there's 4 types of korbanot. There's olah, chatat, shlamim, and todah. All 4 types of korbanot are koche mizbeach. That means you bring them on the mizbeach. Therefore, the goof itself is kadosh. So, if you're thinking about animals that are koche bedek habayit, they're stuff that are just property of the Bet HaMikdash. So then you're going to ask yourself, how many of those really exist? I think just para. I don't think there's that many other If nothing comes to mind, I could be wrong. But as far as the animals, because what else is considered koche bedek habayit? I'll tell you is the kelim, right? So they would have these vessels that they would use to do korbanot with, right? So you put, let's say, for example, for a mincha, you take a flour offering and you put it inside these kelim and you bring them places, or even just where you would use to be mekabel the blood, right? Whenever they did shechita on an animal, they had to get all the blood in a cup, and they would use it. You cannot spill that blood. You cannot put it down. The cup is a triangle, so you can't put it down. So you have to right, all these things that all these laws that apply to it. These are called koche bedek habayit, right? Which is the law. It's like the upkeep of the house. It's property of the Beit HaMikdash, right? Which, like I said, it's interesting. It's the only animal that I can think of. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's the only animal that I can think of that is considered koche bedek habayit, right? The upkeep of the house, the property of the Beit HaMikdash. Usually, it's more than just the property of the Beit HaMikdash. Fine. So says the Gemara. Now the Gemara is about to get very, 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 very technical. We're gonna go down a big path that I think we're gonna have to keep a cheshbon. So we're gonna keep this idea in our head. We're going to follow this thread to its logical conclusion, and then we're going to prove that this makes no sense, and we're going to go back and give another answer. Okay, so that's what's about to happen. We're gonna try and follow as that goes along. Yeah. So again, our answer is it is bedek habayit, right? It's a very important answer. It's bedek habayit, but the Gemara, the pasuk calls it a chatat. Therefore, we regard it as a chatat. So the Gemara, if you regard it as a chatat, you have big problems. Why? So says the Gemara, ela me'ata, rather now. So ela me'ata, last word in the line is me'ata. It's like 8-10 lines from the top. So ela me'ata, rather now, if you're going to follow that, tipasel be'yotze dofen. If it was born from a C-section, it should be pasul. Okay, there's halacha, a chatat born of a C-section is pasul. Okay, so that's you cannot use that chatat, right? So now, a paraduma, we never saw anywhere that you're not. In fact, we're about to see something, whether or not this is true. But a para aduma born of a C-section is fine. It's not a problem. We're about to see some machloket, but let's just assume for a second that it's fine. Well, if it was like a chatat, if it had the laws of a chatat, it would be a problem of if it was born in a C-section. So let's see what happens. So vechitema, maybe you're gonna say hachinami. It's true. Ala matanya. Why do we have a braita that says hikdisha beyotze dofen pesula? If you were makdish, that means you made a paraduma. You had a red calf, and you said this paraduma is a paraduma for the Beit HaMikdash. We're going to go slaughter it and make everybody tahor, right? And it was what that calf had been born of a cesarean section, right? So you said, aha, perfect. Pesula. Nope, it's no good. It does not work. That animal is pasul. So Rabbi Shimon machshir. So it's a machloket Tanaim. Rabbi Shimon says you could use an animal that is born of a C-section, and everybody else says it's pasul. So says the Gemara. Vechitema Rabbi Shimon l'taime. Maybe you're going to say. So 1 second. Give me a second here. So it's strange. When I was learning this last night, I think I flipped this backwards. I said this backwards. I thought that we were going according to Rabbi Shimon. Really, Rabbi Shimon seems to be agreeing with us. Rabbi Shimon is Rabbi Shimon's the problem. Let's see. 1 second. Okay, let's speak this out. Let's speak out what's bothering me. So the Gemara says, if this is correct, if you're telling me that a paraduma, when it comes to the pisul, meaning when it comes to whether or not it is pasul, it has the laws of a chatat. So if paraduma has the laws of chatat for pisul, so then it should have the law of chatat that a C-section is pasul. So chatat born of a C-section is pasul. Korban paraduma should be pasul as well. Korban paraduma doesn't make sense. A paraduma should be pasul as well. So says the Gemara. Maybe you're going to tell me that that's correct, that it is pasul. Okay. So the Gemara is asking a very interesting. It's very interesting why the Gemara is doing this. Okay, fine. Let's go over this again. Yeah, starting from that alama tanya. Alama tanya means why do we have a braita? First one line is tanya. Hiktishah beyotze dofen. If you make a korban, again, korban is weird. If you make a paraduma into a paraduma, but that the specific cow that you chose was born of a C-section, pisula. It's no good. Now that works for us. The Chachamim say it's no good, and we say it should be no good. Okay, so this is what was throwing me off. The Chachamim say it's no good. Why is the Gemara says, oh, it should be no good? And the Chachamim say it's no good. So what's the question? The question is not on the Chachamim. The question is on Rabbi Shimon. Okay, we're about to flip that around and say Rabbi Shimon says. So Rabbi Shimon machshir. Rabbi Shimon says it's okay. Right? So the Chachamim say it's no good. Rabbi Shimon says it's okay. Now, usually we go like a Chachamim. Rabbi Shimon. We go like a Chachamim. And this is where everything was throwing me off. The answer to this, the explanation behind this question is, we're asking according to Rabbi Shimon. That means there is not a machloket in what we just said. What we just said is, a paraduma is kochei bedek habayit. It is designated to be holy from the just in the sense that it is the property of the Bet HaMikdash. Doesn't have the holiness of the kotrei mizbeach, right, of a regular korban. So says the Gemara, if that's true, everybody should agree that it's pasul. Why does Rabbi Shimon say that it's kasher? That's the question. Why would Rabbi Shimon say that it's kasher? Meaning, you're right, it's a machloket, Tanaim, but there shouldn't be a machloket. Even Rabbi Shimon should have to agree to us. So says the Gemara, you might have a good answer, which is what? V'chitema. So you might have a good way of getting out of this, right? So again, the question is only on Rabbi Shimon. How on earth could Rabbi Shimon disagree with us? Says the Gemara, v'chitema. Maybe you'll say Rabbi Shimon l'tamei. Rabbi Shimon holds like himself. He has a way. Meaning Rabbi Shimon. Forget about Rabbi Shimon. He has his own shita. He has his own way of belief, which is the Amar Yotze Dofen Vlad Me'al Yahu. Rabbi Shimon does not consider a Yotze Dofen a C-section person or animal. Right now we're talking about a human, I believe. But Rabbi Shimon does not hold that a C-section human or animal is different than a regular human or animal. There's no difference, right? Le'inyan halacha, according to Rabbi Shimon. So you're going to answer simple. It's not that Rabbi Shimon doesn't hold that it's kocheh bedek habayit, right? It's not that Rabbi Shimon holds that it's kocheh mizbeach. It's that Rabbi Shimon holds it's kocheh bedek habayit. It is just the property of the Bet HaMikdash. The problem is, even though it's just the property of the Bet HaMikdash, it is, according to Rabbi Shimon, there's no difference between a C-section animal and a non-C-section animal. So don't ask from the C-section stuff. It's not, that's Rabbi Shimon. He has his own ideas that have nothing to do with us, that are not related. So that's how the Gemara answers that. So one more time, if we go back, if you're going to tell me Rabbi Shimon holds according to his own shita, De'amar Yotzei Dofen Vlad Me'al Yahu, that Rabbi Shimon holds a Yotzei Dofen is considered its own animal. It's completely kosher, regular, no difference between a Yotzei Dofen and a not Yotzei Dofen. Ve'ha'amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Modeh haya Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon would agree, Li'inyan kodashim she'eno kadosh. That doesn't apply to korbanot. So the idea that Rabbi Shimon holds that a C-section animal is just a regular animal, or C-section person, just a regular person, regarding all halachot, not regarding korbanot. Rabbi Shimon holds when it comes to korbanot, a C-section animal is not the same as a normal animal born through normal way. So if that's true, we have a problem again, right? Our problem is Rabbi Shimon holds it's kocheh bedek habayit, which is what we hold. He holds that it is kasher for the Bet HaMikdash, it is kasher if it's a paraduma, and he holds that that has a halachot of a chatat. It's pasul like a chatat, and if your answer that it's pasul like a chatat applies, then Rabbi Shimon has no way of reconciling these three things, these three facts. Again, it is just the property of the Bet HaMikdash. That's fine, but if you're telling me that it has the laws of a chatat for the pisulot of the chatat, right? Whatever makes a chatat no good makes a korban. A paraduma no good. Whatever makes a chatat no good makes a paraduma no good. So if that's true, Rabbi Shimon holds whatever makes a chatat no good makes a korban Again, a paraduma no good. Then how come he holds that it is good if it's a C-section animal? That's the question. If it's a C-section animal, why does he say it's okay? If we know that he holds that whatever applies to a chatat applies to this. For a pasul, it's a problem. So says the Gemara, a new answer, right? So the first answer was, whatever applies to a chatat applies to this. That's not the answer, it's a different answer. What's the different answer? So, says the Gemara, Ela is the last word in line. Ela shani para, rather, para is different. Ho'il umum posel ba. A para is different. Paraduma is different. That a mum is pasul by a paraduma. So the pasuk tells us you cannot use a paraduma that has a mum. Can't use a paraduma that has a mum. Then I can't use a paraduma that was that the person had relations with either. Right? So says the Gemara, Devar erva v'avodah zarah nami posel ba. So therefore, Devar erva, which means a person was with the animal, had relations with the animal, or that it was used as avodah zarah, those two things are also a problem for that animal. Okay? So how do we know that? Dichtiv, the pasuk says, Ki moshchatam bahem mumbam. Okay, so it connects, there's this concept in the Torah called a hekesh. It says two ideas, two words in the same pasuk. And when it says two ideas, two words in the same pasuk, and it's a hekesh, it connects those two words. So since it connects these two words of moshchatam, which means hashchata, which means avodah zarah and dvar erva, and also mum, therefore they are both pasul. Chazak Baruch everybody. I think we have to hold here. So what we'll hold is by the second answer. Ella is what we're holding by. Chazak Baruch everybody. Mizrat Hashem should have